Hi, welcome to the video. Sorry about the lighting. I forgot to record an intro for this video.
Oh, major disaster. What will we do?
Well, it's a good thing I have a light. So basically, quite good, isn't it? Basically, this video is looking at Google Earth maps, another map analysis video looking into the search and rescue report when it came to the sniffer dogs and where they found the scent of Kenny Veach, which turned out to be in a completely different area a few days afterwards, if I'm not wrong. So we're going to have a look at that, a deep look at it, potential routes, explaining and theories to why that would occur and how it would occur, and actually tying it in with the other key point from the previous video of Kenny being seen 3 days later after his disappearance. And I might be using the odd bit of footage of Scott Natal, so credit to him, okay? Let's get into it now. So if we begin in order of events of Kenny's final hike route, on screen right now in yellow is the hike route Kenny Veach took. Now, we're not focusing on the hike up to the covered cave and back. It's from the parking spot to the mine shaft, because that's where the scent followed and where it ended. If we just zoom in down here, the parking spot, it's a rough area, okay? I know people say I've done it wrong, but it's round about here where the vehicle was found abandoned. Now for Kenny, he would have got out of his vehicle with or without equipment, I don't know. And then he proceeded going north. So I just flip the map a bit, like that, and proceeded going all the way up here, passing Jeremy Guzzler, and up to the mine shaft. And this spot where the phone was found nearby with loose change. Now, as search and rescue said, the scent was lost. It didn't go any further, and it didn't really seem to go in any other directions either. So one of the theories, concepts was maybe Kenny Veach double-backed his hike route. So he went back the way he came originally, all the way back down here, maybe, and then eventually back to his vehicle. But he didn't go back in it. So where would he have gone from there? That is really the question. I mean, there is still possibilities that he might have gone elsewhere, past the mine shaft or in a different direction, but I don't know quite about the scent, maybe changing of clothes, loss of certain clothes, and that disrupted the scent. But before we go onwards with that, the key point of this video is highlighting what the search and rescue team found, I believe, a few days later at a different date, when looking for Kenny, is that they found the scent of Kenny Veach in a completely different area, which is very interesting. And that is of Pine Nut Road. If we zoom out, ignore that red line for a second. If we just move over this way to the right, as you can see, that yellow marker is of Pine Nut Road. I don't know how much of all this is Pine Nut Road, but when I searched it at the time, the marker was automatically placed where the yellow marker is at, as you can see. The road itself, I don't know if it's a rough one or if it's an accessible one. Jeff Clark said something about restricted access, or it's blocked off or something somewhere down the road. That may well be the case. But I just wanted to highlight it all just so it stood out and it was a bit more clearer. We just have a closer inspection of it. I mean, you can kind of faintly see it, how it goes in and out, and it goes up this way, heading north, and I think that's what Scott Natal said. I don't know what that X is in the ground. Kind of looks a bit odd from looking at it down above. Carry on up this way, and eventually it kind of, reaches a dead end or something, Looks like there's a lot of trees or pines or whatever. And I guess that's the end of that. So I guess the road does come to a dead end or something at least. So yeah, so we just zoom out and track back. Just flip the map just for a second, just to get an idea of the elevation and what it looks like. So that's kind of like facing north and onwards. And it does run in parallel to the Cave hike route. It runs parallel to Sheep Peak as well, where Kenny Veach has been previously. So that's what it looks like. If I just rotate it round, just so you can see the ridge and the mountains. There we go, that's the best I can do. So the road itself, if that's the whole of Pine Nut Road, it does, go quite far. There's a lot of ins and outs, as you can see. As I said, Scott Natal has been within this area, and he did record some of the footage. He did also refer to Kenny Veach being within this area, Pine Nut Road, as the video shows.
Take this road, Pine Nut Road, and it goes back north. Now, in some of Kenny's videos, or at least one of them, he picks up pine nuts as he's hiking.
Now, as you go down this way, if you use exiting, it comes out at Yucca Pass. Does the name come up on screen or not? No, it doesn't, but I'm sure it's called Yucca Pass somewhere. And then you got Gas Peak Road camping area. So, the point to get across after reviewing both areas, if Kenny Veach's scent was found somewhere down Pine Nut Road, whether it be here, or maybe further down, or maybe further up, how did he get there in the first place? And was it on the same hike route or on a different occasion? Well, that all depends, but if we're basing it off the idea Kenny Veach did it all in his final hike, he left his vehicle where it was parked, the parking spot, left a phone at the mine shaft, and then went in a completely different direction, maybe changing clothes as well. That might have affected the scent. Well, really, to get to Pine Nut Road effectively, well, I don't know about it being practical, but in terms of time efficiency, maybe, if I just rotate just for a second and flip it, it's really going to be over the ridge, isn't it, to get there? So maybe in parallel to the mine shaft and phone, went up that ravine or so, because there seems to be some kind of, I don't know, like pathway or something which goes up. I mean, to be fair, it does look kind of steep. But yeah, if he did go up this way, somehow, if he managed, he's been up Sheep Peak, if I can find it, around this area. He's been up Sheep Peak, so he would have managed. And then keep on going, and then eventually over the ridge and down, and as you can see in the distance, Pine Nut Road, and then going wherever from there. That could be possible. I mean, it does kind of look very bumpy and rocky, even on, Google Earth. So maybe questionable, but, it depends what he was capable of at the time. As we know, J Chuck has been up some of these ravines, but I don't think he was able to go all the way up on some of them, maybe because of the trees, the elevation, or they were blocked off, but he did the best he could. So maybe out of some of these ravines, one of them is accessible. I mean, there's enough of them. Depends which one is the steepest and which one's the most easiest to access, but it would make sense that Kenny Veach may have went up and over, and that's how he reached Pine Nut Road, and that's why his scent was found there. Now, if that's been the case in terms of the distance covered, well, from the parking spot to the mine shaft, that would be about 4.03 miles. And then you add that to the distance of the red line all the way to Pine Nut Road, and that will be a total of about 11.65 miles, which is a fair distance. It would take a fair bit of time as well. I don't know how long, maybe 8 hours, maybe. This is rough because I'm thinking on the spot right now, but it would have taken a while, especially going over this terrain. If he was even able to, it would have taken quite a bit. Now, if that seems impossible or hardly believable, I mean, what other way would he be able to get there? Well, if he tracked back, hence the scent being lost, because he just double backed on himself, what he could have done was, where this red line is, this one, he might have carried on walking and carried on up to Gas Peak Road camping area, and then he proceeded to go this way, which is is it northeast? I think it's northeast, yeah. Heading this way, same way Scott Natal went in his vehicle. And then obviously just followed it all the way up, going in and out, round the bends, and then eventually then heading north, because it's heading north now. I just tapped and it is, and just carried on. As I said, I'm not quite sure exactly to where the scent was found on Pine Nut Road, but they did say the search and rescue team, I think it was in 2014, did find Kenny's scent somewhere down here. So I don't think it really matters where about, because the main point is, what is he doing at Pine Nut Road when his last known scent was at the mine shaft? Are these two separate hikes, or is it on the same day he went missing? Was he able to do it all in one day, or was it spread out over 2-3 days, like how he said in his message to his girlfriend? That could be possible. So you've basically got two different ways to get there, and maybe there are places in between which might be accessible if you was to do a shortcut. Now the next thing is, I'll just make note of the distance from about the start of, where it says Gas Peak, all the way up to Pine Nut Road, the yellow marker. That's about 12.57 miles. So even that's quite a bit of distance. If Kenny was to come over that ridge, follow that red line, and then hike back down Pine Nut Road, that's a fair bit. 11.65 miles to get to Pine Nut Road, and then about 12.57 miles to exit Pine Nut Road. That just seems very extreme to be doing, and probably not possible. But this is where we add in the next point. If you remember, one of the reports said that Kenny Veach, 3 days after his disappearance, was spotted by a neighbour at his own home doing whatever. Now, if that's the case, he might have had a bit of assistance to maybe get around, and people might have been cooperating with him at the time. So if we're basing it off the idea that he was on the way back home, where he was spotted 3 days after his disappearance, there might have been additional people involved. And what I mapped out is basically potential spots he might have been picked up by people or someone. I don't think he would have been able to cover all the distance on foot. Maybe a fair bit, but not all of it. So really, where the key hotspots? Well, the parking spot here, that's one possibility that Kenny backtracked. If we just forget Pine Nut Road for a second, okay, and we just focus mainly on the scent being lost. He was at the mine shaft, he backtracked, so the scent, didn't go any further. All the way back to the parking spot, and he met up with someone there in a different car. He got in, and then they drove away down Joe May Road, passing that wildlife refuge centre, and then eventually getting onto the highway, and then going all the way back into the city, and then wherever he lives within there. And then maybe after that, there was more cooperation. Who knows? But that would kind of disguise the scent as well if he suddenly got in a car from this area. If he suddenly got in a car from this area because of being enclosed in a car, the scent wouldn't or couldn't be tracked that easily, right? So that is one possible location. The next possible location, if Kenny decided to walk all the way back, it is possible because Kenny did say about how he had to walk down the highway, as you can see in this video.
It took me quite a while to get out of this mountain range, and I walked almost all the way back to the highway, and my girlfriend picked me up, so it was a long trip. I was pretty wore out and beat up.
So yeah, don't know where about on the highway, but because he's previously done it, it wouldn't be a surprise if he did it again. But in this case, it was for a different reason. And really anywhere down the highway, maybe. He could have been picked up somewhere around here. Yeah, it's more in sight and more people would probably see him, but that's like the second possible pickup spot, somewhere along the highway, because he's been picked up before, so maybe it's become a bit of a routine. And then obviously went back to the city. Now, if that's not the case, the final spot would be if we incorporate Pine Nut Road, tracking back to Kenny Veach's scent found somewhere up Pine Nut Road. So let's say somewhere here, met halfway or so. Somewhere along this road, whoever, whatever, drove up it, because, it is an actual road. As you can see, Scott Natals drove down it, going all the way up. So maybe that's exactly what one of Kenny's contacts did. Parked up round about here, where that black marker is. Or maybe further up, depends where his scent was found down the road. He got in the car, and then obviously the scent was concealed because he was enclosed in a vehicle. And then the vehicle just drove all the way back, coming out, and then eventually getting back onto the highway and into the city. That's what we're looking at, really, because it would make sense. If Kenny's in two different locations and it's based off the idea it was all a part of his final hike route, all happened on either the same day or two, depending on how long it took him, it is possible. For Kenny to get to Pine Nut Road, that's really the only question because of taking into mind the time it takes, the distance as well, because it is a bit far when you look, because, as I said, about 11.65 miles. That's a bit of distance to cover, unless he had another way of getting there. But really, the one thing that reinforces it over time is when we look back at the fact that, Kenny was known to go at times great distance and even without many resources. And the fact that Kenny did manage to walk all the way back to the highway, which is a fair bit of distance within itself. And the fact that Kenny Veach has been up Sheep Peak and maybe some other places as well. You put that all together, then it might seem a bit more valid, a bit more reasonable. So this is just, me mapping it out based off what I know, what we've been told. And I think that really concludes it at this moment in time. So let's get into the final part of this video. Now, one final key point to make note of is what was said by Scott Natal in his video down Pine Nut Road about how Kenny Veach was down there during his M Cave hike video when he was collecting those pine nuts. Now, I can't confirm that because I don't really know the area or been in the environment to know. I think Scott's argument was because of the vegetation and the types of things around, as well as the pine nuts. That's why Kenny Veach came across that stuff and when he recorded himself in that area. Maybe, but can anyone who has hiked out there, maybe like Jeff Claw or who else, Jay Silverheels or Jay Chuck, when going down the M Cave hike route, picked Joe May Canyon, were there pine nuts? Was the vegetation there where you could collect nuts? Because if there was, then, you know, maybe Kenny Veach was in the area he said he was in. But, you know, I kind of understand Scott Natal, because at the end of the day, you know, there was a bit of contradiction when it came to describing the environment and the cave itself by Kenny Veach, how Kenny was saying it's on ground level like here, but early in the video he was saying it's halfway up a mountain or something. And then now he was saying it's like really deep and dark and as tall as me, but then some other caves out there weren't that deep, and, well, none of them were, or fit the characteristics what Kenny said. And like I said, spelunking, well, you couldn't, because I said it was all shallow. And now Kenny was saying, oh, no one ever comes here, and then next thing you know, there's a skull found, or no, a rock placed somewhere, and he says, oh, looks like someone was here recently. Because of those contradictions, and maybe other unknown factors or unlisted ones, you might be more inclined to think, well, maybe Kenny Veach was also messing around in terms of the actual location he was in. And that's why Scott Natal thinks the way he does. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Me, I'm not really choosing a side because I wouldn't really know myself. But if we're referring to really Robin, yeah, we didn't know the location at the end of the day, the precise location, the correct canyon to where he was at when he was hiking out there. Like Jeff Clark was hinting at the possibility that maybe Robin wasn't even within the area and he was somewhere completely different for whatever reason. If that was the case, then maybe that's what Kenny Veach did himself. But overall, though, if it was true that Kenny Veach did appear down Pine Nut Road within that M Cave hike video he did, I don't know how he managed to do it all in one day, unless that's a lie as well, and it might be footage from another hike he did and they were stitched together. I don't know, because he did cut his videos, you know, it wasn't one long continuous video. How could it be? You know, you got to edit videos, so maybe two separate ones were put together, maybe. But if it was possible, still the distance, the length it would take to get from, you know, the mine shaft to Pine Nut Road, I don't know. So maybe it was on separate occasions. That's the only way I could think around that, unless there's an easier, more accessible way to do it in one whole go. And even if that wasn't the case, you know, if we just put all that aside, all that confusion and suspicion, if the search team, you know, finally are telling the truth, if the search team said the scent of Kenny Veach was somewhere down Pine Nut Road, you know, the real question is, why? Why is Kenny there? Or whenever, like, whatever point, why was he down there? What was the point? Is that where the cave is? Was he looking for something else? Was he on foot all the way, or did he get dropped off? Did he get picked up somewhere down that road? That's, you know, the real question at the end of the day. What was he doing down Pine Nut Road? What is there? Scott Natal's gone down there. He's explored. Didn't find anything from what we know of and what he showed in his video. So what is Kenny Veach doing there? Does he know something we don't? Or is it some kind of misdirection? Again, you know, if his vehicle was abandoned, which it was, to begin with, that would highlight the idea that, oh, he must be out there within that desert, within that hike route. He's gone somewhere. And then for the phone to be left at the mine shaft, it's almost like little key markers to indicate that, oh, well, he must carry on going north. But one thing you can't really adjust is really the scent. You know, unless Kenny was able to get the scent to keep on moving forwards into the distance, I really don't know how. And then he double backed on himself, or he went elsewhere. That could really confuse everyone. But he didn't, because the scent was lost, unless there's another reason to explain to why. And for Pine Nut Road, unless that was another tactic by Kenny to confuse people, or he, you know, went that way, maybe went over the mountains, the ridges, because he knew other people probably wouldn't look up there or go up that way, and then coming over onto, you know, Pine Nut Road, and then getting picked up, and then the scent being lost again, then going back to where he lives, and then being caught by a neighbour. It seems possible, maybe. You know, there's a lot of ideas and maybe not enough answers, but that's not our fault. We can only work off with what we've got. But for the search team to say they found a scent elsewhere, that kind of makes the overall mystery just a little bit weirder, and maybe slants more towards that he might still be, or was still alive after those days of going missing. Maybe. I think we'll end the video there for now. If there is any more updates or extra information, I can do that in a follow-up video. But I think for now, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.